So, hello, Simone, and welcome.
Hello.
So, we're coming on to my Breaking the Witch Moon series. Do you want to just start by saying your star sign and where you're based in the world and what you do?
Yeah, so I am an Aries,
Mm,
but actually Aries Taurus cusp and literally by hours.
wow.
Um, so which yeah, I do believe probably resonates quite a lot. It's a strange, apparently a very strange date as well.
What's
The
the date?
20th. So that's the 20th of April.
Mm.
And lots of slightly strange people have been born on that day. I won't mention too many of them because not everyone will be a fan. But anyway, and then I'm based in Brighton in the UK on the coast, and I work as an energy healer and a psychic medium.
And you're also a witch.
Oh, and of course, yeah,
Oh.
witch. Of course, yeah, wrapped up as a witch. Yeah.
So, I've known you for quite a while now. I can't even remember how
Um,
long. We,
I think well, we must have first spoke, it would be
oh,
4 years ago.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, because when I first had a call with you, I was still very much in the closet as it was, and and still was working my corporate job.
Yeah.
And I haven't been doing that for a while now. So yeah, so that would have been at least 4 years ago.
Yeah, and I've seen such growth within you as a person and your confidence, and really as well, the actually owning your gifts, which has been beautiful to watch on social media.
Thank you so much. That means an awful lot, and
Mm.
it's been a journey.
Yeah, yeah. So do you want to share? Obviously, I know about your story about being the witch. So, but do you want to share like how, well, really, I want to know when you realized you were a witch, because when I met you, you were like, "Oh, I'm an aromatherapist, and I do this and do that," and I was like, "You're kind of a witch as well." So he's like,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose yeah, like opening up to it really was yeah, like maybe 4 years ago. But I suppose there's been complete signs of it since I was a child. Um, so I think most people would even, like my friends that I've had for my whole life, my parents, my family would probably have always described me as, witchy or hippie, which was always kind of said as a kind of a joke. Um, but, I used to say to my mum when I was like small, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a wizard. And she was like, "Why a wizard?" And I apparently because I was like, "Well, they're the most powerful, and that's why I need to be a wizard." I
that
mean,
makes sense. Yeah.
I was probably like 3 or 4 at this age, but as a small child, I used to see ghosts and spirits, which was at the time, I suppose, quite a controversial thing within my family. So I suppose it probably all started from there. And then, during my life, there have been phases where I've really leaned back into it, leaned out of it again. And I think, yeah, probably, maybe 10 years ago, I felt there was this shift in maybe what my calling was.
Mm.
And I suppose then over time, it wasn't till maybe 4 years ago when we started speaking, Emma, that I kind of started putting the dots together in terms of like, well, actually, this is me honoring my witch.
Yeah.
And then I suppose, yeah, since then it's just kind of exploded. I found out lots about my family and witches that were in my family. So
Amazing.
having like an actual lineage of
Yeah.
that past life, regression has been an interesting one.
Yeah.
Um, Again, very much, sure that I've had a witch life as a past life at least once. So yeah, so I suppose it's just been of putting all of the pieces of the puzzle back together, as it were.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
And I think you've done so much work on yourself by this private study to get to know who you are
yeah.
and home to yourself and, reclaim the witch that, you're here to be. And I think all of that work you've done, that research, that healing, doing your shadow work and sort of practicing your gifts has really helped you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It has.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
been amazing for you. And you can definitely see it within you.
Thank you. All been worth it. Oh yeah, it's absolutely been worth it. I think
Mm.
it's not been easy,
No.
at all at points. I think, sometimes there were definitely points where I was like, what
Mm.
have I opened up?
Mm.
Because it really does, mentioned shadow work. It really does mean you have to kind of go into the depths of yourself, and that's
Yes,
not always
it's hard.
comfortable. So
Yeah.
yeah. So but I wouldn't change any of it because, in myself I feel way more comfortable
Mm.
and confident, and I know there's still, processing to do and more healing there
Yeah.
always is,
Yeah.
but
I don't
um
think we finish. I think we
no,
keep going,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, if I compared myself to now to, even 4 or 5 years ago,
Mm.
I just feel like a completely different person, and in, the most positive ways,
Yeah.
despite going through some of the darkness as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose, yeah, it's all been worth it. It's all worth
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So something I want to ask you, there's two parts. There's obviously coming out as the witch, but there's also, with your family, you're married, aren't you, as well, and
Yeah.
where you live and your friends and stuff like that, but also really telling everyone and sharing your gifts, and we'll go into your gifts, but your gifts are really classed, well, I think in the muggle world as quite like, oh, that's a bit weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the
Definitely.
normal, it's not the normal job of, I don't know, I don't know what normal jobs are these days, but you know what I mean. So we've got two lovely, interesting conversations there. So I think we'll start with the word witch. I mean, did you sit down with your husband and like come out, or did you like go to your family? How did that happen? And what fears did you have within yourself?
Yeah, this is a good question. Um, I was like riddled with fear,
Mm.
and I think like I could physically feel it, even though when I had, joined the dots and I knew that is exactly kind of, I suppose, the title or the person.
Yeah.
But I think it just, to me, it opened up so much in terms of being seen in that way. And I suppose the layers within that, this whole like suppression of my gifts,
Mm.
I suppose the association with which which has in, I suppose, the modern day, that actually it's kind of not always seen as a positive thing. And, actually, what are people going to think? I was really hung up on what other
Really? Yeah.
people were going to think. And
Were you worried that they were gonna like take the mickey out of you, or worried that you would
yeah,
lose
well,
people?
not necessarily actually take the mickey. I think I was almost that bit I was okay with. It was more that I would just be completely, ostracized and, kind of just pushed away from people, or, that, people might have taken the mickey behind closed doors, but that wasn't a thing. But it was actually more like I would lose my family, I would lose my close friends because suddenly this wasn't the Sim or
Yeah.
Simone that they had, known. So I had this real, like, I suppose, like the control of that really kept me quite fearful of coming out at first.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually started with my parents,
Yeah.
and my mum, and it came from actually talking about my um like spirit connection when I was a child, because I think I really needed to have a conversation with them about that. in order to heal and process that a little bit more and hear from them, why it was so suppressed. And then actually, the reaction I got from talking about that was so positive. Both my mum and dad were, I suppose, almost apologetic,
Wow.
that
Wow.
they were very young at the time themselves,
Yeah.
and they were young parents. They also were, I suppose, fearful of the idea of,
Yeah.
their little daughter talking to ghosts,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and didn't really know how to handle it. And I think, they were then like, it was so obvious that was what was going on, but
Mm.
we just didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't have the tools to know what to do.
Yeah.
And I think so they were just, actually then, like, as I say, a bit quite apologetic, but equally then just that gave me such relief that it was
Yeah.
almost like they
Yeah.
almost know, they
Yeah.
know. And so then I said, I really feel I'm going on quite a journey with this, and that, I haven't been led to become an aromatherapist for just a whim. There feels like there's much more to this. And,
Yeah.
they were just like, yeah, I think open up to it, see where it takes you. And were really, really supportive. I think my mum was a little bit more worried about, oh, well, what if you're going to start, working with demons, and like we're straight in there with all the like,
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
you going to be are you going to be protected if you're going to work
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
way? And I was like, well, yeah, hold on, I haven't quite got to that yet, but but
Yeah.
yeah, so I think there was a bit of worry with what that then meant for me, but they have been, like really, really open to it, and I think actually it's, kind of opened it up in my whole,
Yeah.
um, and in such a lovely way.
Yeah.
Everyone is
Yeah.
way more curious,
Yeah.
and it's almost just like a given thing now. It's not a big deal at all in that sense. Yeah.
That's amazing. And did you actually use the word witch when you were discussing this with your parents?
Yes, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did say, well, for
Like
me, this
vomit it out, or did you like?
yeah, like, well, yeah, so I will, that means I identify as a witch. I really feel like I want to work with spirit. I work with plants and nature, and I work with energy, and this just feels like it's all coming together. And I now believe that it's under this term witch, and
Yeah.
that, that's how I'm going to embrace it. And yeah, so yeah, and then I just, that support, as I say, is just like throughout my whole family. Even my grandparents are
Wow.
really open to it. Well, so open to it that,
Yeah.
I've sorted out a spirit that was in their home. Um, and
Amazing.
my grandma has regular energy healing with me now. And,
Oh, wow.
so my granddad's tried it, but, didn't quite get it. But yeah, my grandma's a massive fan, and she has it with me regularly. And my sister is so open to it. My niece is like a mini witch in the making herself, and she's only 8. So yeah, so I think, it's just been such a beautiful journey for the whole family.
Yeah. And what about your
So I'm
husband?
very lucky.
You are very lucky. Very
Yeah,
lucky. And I guess that
yeah,
gave you more confidence to tell other people.
yeah. It's,
Mm.
I actually thought telling my family would be the biggest hurdle. But I think once that was done, and, I think I at first was probably still a little bit reluctant about what I was talking about, or careful with what I was saying. But now it's just like, I'll meet my mum for coffee and we'll just be talking about aliens. That's all completely like normal now.
Really fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, she's become quite obsessed with them. But I think again
Yeah.
about this, but yeah, I think it was really strange. It was actually the people that I used to work with. I'd had this whole career in public relations, and where, you kind of have an identity. It's kind of drummed into you to be, in that corporate world, to push yourself through the ranks, as it were, and all of this
Yeah.
kind of rubbish.
Yeah.
And suddenly I thought, what are people that I used to work with going to think, And that was suddenly where the real fear came in, because I'd spent so long building up, that identity.
Yeah.
And, you know, that to me has been some of the most challenging, releasing myself of that identity and not giving a shit about what people I used to
Yeah.
work with think of me.
Yeah.
It's none of their business. But
Yeah.
that really threw up, and it was almost like that. I suppose to me they really symbolized, not my inner circle. They were supporting me. It was
Righty.
more like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
community, the world. That was kind of for me where that was
Yeah.
coming from. And I think that to me was probably not only my own insecurities, but probably deeply rooted witch wound, of being
Yeah.
not accepted by the bit wider community, or, the wider audiences as it was. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm waffling on now,
No,
sorry.
you're not. No, you're not at all. It's like I remember. Obviously, I sort of came out on social media around 2020, and I did lose a lot of people. And my mum always said, you have to keep this quiet because you will get judged and you'll get picked on. You'll lose friends. And I was an editorial photographer, and I did have editors like message me saying, "I can't work with you. You're talking about dead people. You're using the word witch. I can't do it." And it
Yeah.
really did hurt me at the time. And because it does, it wounds you. And you're like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Do I have to hold back or not speak my truth? It brings up a lot of stuff. But what I found is probably 2 years later or even a year later, they wanted to come back. They were almost like
Yeah.
watching from afar and thinking, oh, actually, she's still the same Emma that she was with the camera in her hand. She hasn't changed. It's not so scary. So sometimes it's the movies or other people's projections on them. They've got kind of got to see their own evidence that we're
Yeah.
not scary. We're not doing anything bad.
Yeah. Well, this
Did
is
you have any backlash? Did you have anything like that?
I mean, I think, yeah, I've had a
Yeah.
few like people have said a few things, and probably people that I wouldn't even worry too much about, but I think at the time it was hurtful.
Yeah, it is.
Um, but actually, a few close friends have almost been worried about me, and said, "Oh, I saw
Oh,
what
she's
you
losing it.
posted on Instagram, and are you okay? Do we need to send you somewhere?
Yeah.
As in, like, I think they thought I was having some sort of mental
Yeah.
breakdown, maybe.
Yeah.
And I would, at first I was just like, oh, I hate that they feel like that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then I was
Yeah.
like, no, actually, this is about their projection, not mine. And
Yeah, it's almost like they're on a different timeline, like
yeah,
you've done the work on yourself, you're, stepping into your truth, you're on a higher timeline. They just need to
yeah,
catch up.
yeah. And I think you start to learn,
Mm.
that not everyone is on the same journey. That's that. And
It's
actually,
fine.
they
Yeah.
might not even open up to it in this lifetime, so but I think that all takes time, and you need to have, yeah, like a few knocks. I definitely feel like, yeah, I hear from certain people less than I used to, but
Yeah.
then, yeah, equally I feel like there's been some people that come back into my life, and then they're like, I'm fascinated by what you do. I want to know more, want to pick your brains about it all, to the point sometimes I'm not at work now,
Yeah, time
like
out. Need a break.
relaxing time. Um,
Yeah.
and that I just, I always think that is amazing. If you're open to it now, if it took you a little while, then that's great. And I'm
Yeah.
totally here for that.
Yeah.
But
It
but I
needs people like you sharing it on social media to make it more normal. Because I
yeah,
can think back about, I don't know, say 10 years ago, and somebody had said, oh, I'm a yoga instructor, or I jump in an ice bath every morning. People would used to look at them and go, that's really weird. When now that's totally fine. But for some reason, the word witch is like, no, time out.
yeah.
And I
There's
find
yeah,
that really weird because we're okay, like gathering different things from different cultures, but we actually have a history of witchcraft in the UK. So why aren't we, bringing that wisdom from our ancestors
yeah.
into our day-to-day life? I find it really bizarre.
And seeing it as like this lovely
Yeah,
heritage rather
yeah,
than like something to fear.
yeah.
Yeah, I completely, yeah, agree. I think, and I find it fascinating. Again, at first it upset me, but I now kind of find it a bit fascinating and equally just block them very quickly. But people who
Yeah.
show up in your messages on, on social media and are just so horrible, because they have this idea of what witchcraft looks like, and it's all
Mm.
devil worshipping, and
Is
you
that
can
the
only
kind
be.
of, would you be happy to share some of the kind of negative stuff people have said? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I
I've had
have.
you must work the devil. You obviously kill crows.
Yeah,
I don't know where that's come from. I'm like, why would I kill a crow?
I would actually love one as a pet.
Yeah, me too. I was like,
um
mm,
yeah, I mean, I have actually. The worst one was someone did message me and say that probably that we should bring back the burning times and I should be front of the queue, was possibly the worst one that I had.
and was
Um,
that by a woman?
it was from a woman,
Yeah.
and
Oh
through
my
Instagram
gosh.
messages. Yeah. This was maybe like two years ago. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that would
probably.
trigger me. That would make me.
Yeah, and it did, and I think for a couple of weeks I felt really like reluctant to share,
Mm,
But yeah, right, and I find actually, I think just the whole idea of social media, then people can be so cruel, because it's almost like they can just back away from it. There's
yeah, they
no
just
like
hide behind it.
responsibility for them to then
Yeah,
face up to what they've said. So
yeah,
that has been quite an interesting journey. But
yeah. But
but
karma
yeah,
is a bitch. You should never mess with a witch. Karma is a
well, yeah,
bitch. So
that's
I'm
also
like,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, but now, I mean, I don't feel like, I think now I'm just really, it's just water for ducks back in that sense. I just,
Yeah.
block, gone. It's just, I don't let it eat me up the way that I probably did before. But I think that's also part of the work, is part
Yeah,
of
it's because
coming
you
in.
returned home to you. You know who you
Yeah,
are, and that's just the most beautiful thing anyone can do for themselves, I think, in this day and age.
yeah. But you almost have to face a bit of that in order
Yeah,
to
it's a lot of tears, a lot of sweatpants, ice
a lot of,
cream,
yeah.
bubble baths.
A lot of second guessing, like, what have I
Yeah.
done? Am I doing the right thing? Yeah, there's been a lot of tears, a lot of, I need
Mm,
to get out, fresh air, sort my head out. There's been lots of those moments,
yeah.
but they become less and less. And that is, I think, when you're really breaking through. And like I said at the beginning, you're just in that place where you feel so much more comfortable in
Yeah,
yourself,
you do.
and yeah,
Feel alive and you just feel at peace.
yeah, that is it, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
peace.
And I
Just
always find it quite sad if someone mocks it or they don't believe in magic. And I'm like, that's a really sad timeline to be on,
Yeah,
isn't
that's so
it? I'm like,
true.
you're
Yeah.
missing out on so much. And
And that's
especially the
it.
people that think there's no life after death. And I'm like, that's really, really sad.
Yeah,
And
because there's
because
probably more
everyone
life.
loses, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, everyone loses someone eventually or something
Yeah.
that they love.
Yeah.
One thing
Yeah,
that
it is
connects us
actually.
all.
Yeah.
And it's so sad if they don't believe in that.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. It's very true. It's almost like being so closed off to
Yeah,
all of this infinite impossibilities. There's
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
yeah.
Comfort. So before we get into your gifts, you obviously have helped a lot of people and you have clients and stuff like that. So do you want to explain how you have clients? And I
Mm.
would like to know how you see the witch wound in others.
Yeah. So for me, my clients are, I see people in person.
Mm.
I have a lovely little healing space in the lanes in Brighton. And I see most people come for either energy healing, or I work with spirit in terms of like reading. Sometimes that expands into working with divination tools and things as well, depending on what I suppose the need of the client is.
Mm.
But often, I suppose the thing that I've found that has really developed over the last few years is that I used to have things very separate. I would offer readings, I would offer energy healing.
Yeah.
The energy healing started to become so much more. It was like I can see the
Mm.
energy
Yeah.
of my client, but I can also see their spirit guides, their past
Yeah.
loved ones, past lives.
Yeah.
I'm getting like psychic intuitive messages
Yeah.
about maybe what they're having for dinner, like all sorts of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So that then became, quite, I suppose, the difference in how I was working. And I suppose that goes the other way. If people come for readings, I can often say, well, in terms of your energy, this is going on as well. So, it can be quite an interesting
Yeah.
space to navigate, if you're suddenly just in the zone, working on someone's root chakra and then their grandmother's in the room.
They're talking about apple pie, or can you remember this?
Yeah,
You're
and
like,
I think at first I was like, whoa, this is,
yeah.
quite fun. And again, I think I had a few clients that I thought, oh, I could probably mention that this was going on, that they were then like, oh, yeah, that's really interesting. And
Yeah.
now that's just what I do. And that's,
Yeah.
if people come to me, they have to understand that if I'm getting other things, that's part of your session,
That's
so
wonderful confidence.
yeah, exactly. And and that I do that, online as well, so people can have online readings or distance healings. And again, I will divulge all of that information
Yeah.
on a lovely recorded voice note, so they've got that to kind of
Amazing. And
refer to.
I'll put all your details below this as well. So
Amazing. Thanks, Emma. Um, but
yeah.
I suppose, yeah, for in terms of like how I see the witch wound showing up for many of my clients, I think I would say like 80% of my clients are actually female. I think last year I started to see more males, which
Wonderful.
I think is really exciting.
Yeah.
But equally, I think, the witch wound impacts guys too.
Yeah.
So, it's quite interesting to watch all of that unfold. But I think for me, it's definitely a lot of people that I see, it's about kind of it's this idea of being judged,
Yeah.
hiding themselves. Um, there's often a lot of people coming who feel really disconnected as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And, kind of say, often I hear the words like, I just don't feel me. I don't, you
Feel
know,
loved.
yeah, I've done this, this, and this in my life, but nothing's ever really felt
Yeah.
really me,
Yeah.
which is so sad. And I think for a long time I was like, oh, wounded healer, I must like look
Yeah.
after.
I'll help everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and of course you want
Yeah.
to, but now I'm very much like, when people may come with those kind of, I feel disconnected. I feel like if I do this, but I feel like I'm going to be judged, or
Yeah.
they know they've got other things that they want to pursue, but they don't do it. They're embarrassed, or they're just like, oh, I just can't possibly do that because I'm a mum, I've got to work a job. They
Yeah.
just don't think it's
Yeah,
possible.
they can't see that that can actually be a job. Do you find as
Yeah,
well that most of the witch wound as well comes from this hiding their gifts?
yeah, absolutely. I was going to
Like,
say it's
like they're
like
just kind of privately, oh, I want to message you privately on Instagram because I see the dead, or I like to work with crystals, or I'm interested in the moon phase, but they keep it quiet.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That,
I get people who will come in their lunch breaks because they don't want their partners knowing that they're seeing
oh,
me,
oh my
or
gosh.
or they'll take time off that they're then like, oh, I've had to take some, an afternoon off to come and see you because I can't do it at the weekend when my partner might know, or even
That's so
people who
sad.
have distance healings when they're like, oh, they'll say, oh, I know this time I'll be alone at home. And And that is really sad,
Yeah,
of course it
yeah,
is. And yeah, that just, and of course that's, none of my business in that sense. But, I would always just be like, well, maybe you should try and have that conversation. And I think, sometimes it does eventually. But yeah, I think, yeah, there's a huge kind of, yeah, I suppose like an issue with
yeah,
people
it
just
is.
not wanting to
Yeah,
embrace their abilities, whatever they may be. It doesn't necessarily always mean they're going to identify as a witch or suddenly become a
yeah,
witch, you know.
yeah,
It might be that, bringing their psychic abilities into their day-to-day life will be
yeah,
really beneficial,
yeah,
as a mum or in their job or,
yeah,
whatever else they're doing. But
yeah,
they're just like, I can't do that. So yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack around it
yeah.
for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that you said you touched on there that you don't have to be a witch.
Yeah,
I believe we all suffer the witch wound, whether we're a witch or not. Any gender, because it's
yeah,
hey, it's a fear that someone, our ancestors would have witnessed something like that, or the fear. So yeah, I think it affects everybody.
yeah. That's so true. And I think
Mm,
I also teach an intuitive psychic class in person here in Brighton, and
amazing.
which is so fun. And I think, yeah, when I first started it, lots of people came and they were like, "Oh, well, I don't really know why I'm here because I don't want to be a psychic medium." And I'm like, "But you don't have to
It has to
be.
be. It's a
You don't
nice
have."
gift for you to have.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
more about you feeling more
yeah,
confident in yourself and trusting yourself. I
yeah,
think that's it. People, particularly things like intuition or our psychic abilities, we suppress that so much because it doesn't have logic or it's not
yeah,
tangible,
yeah,
and it goes against everything that we're taught. So even the idea of people just being more intuitive,
yeah.
they go, well, I can't, that because
No,
that's telling me to do something else. And it's
yeah,
like, it
yeah.
doesn't mean that you suddenly then become this complete woo-woo witch psychic
No.
medium. It might
The
just mean
platform
that,
mediumship on the stage doesn't mean that. And then
yeah,
lots
but
of people mention, it's nice that you have that gift. And I'm like, it's not a gift. Everyone can do this, just that I have a remembrance. I've kept it on. That's the
yeah,
only thing that's different. You
yeah,
just have to
yeah.
re-remember and practice.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
I always say to people, it's re-remembering
yeah,
and unlearning all
yeah,
of the things you've been taught, which can take
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But yeah. But
yeah,
yeah, so I think when people suddenly understand that it doesn't, yeah, if you want to be a witch and come out as a witch, then amazing, great. We
and
need
fine.
we need
Yeah,
more of
or a
them.
wizard.
Yeah,
That's your
or always
thing.
there's still time for me to take that claim.
There is. Maybe that's
But
your current area. I think you've got some time yet, maybe.
yeah, I mean, my mum would find that hilarious.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think for me, it really did come from, for me, watching other people, even if they just start into their intuition, to me, that's the place where they start really trusting their own instincts and that own inner guidance. And to me,
Yeah.
that was part of my journey that then opened me up. As soon as I got more intuitive, I was like, oh, here come all these other things.
Yeah.
I just love to watch that magic unfold
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
people. And I think, intuition is a word that gets thrown around quite a lot now. So
Yeah.
people do feel a little bit more
Yeah.
comfortable with that,
Yeah.
which is often how I hook people in.
Yeah.
I'll say, oh, we're talking about intuition, and then they'll come along and I'm like, and we're talking about psychic abilities and spirit too.
And they're like, oh, I'm not sure, but they're already there.
No, and then they're there and they're like, okay, great, I'm here
Yeah.
now. So yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a funny one. I think there's lots of, like you say, re-remembering for so many and unlearning,
Mm.
the systems and the processes that we've kind of been put into that suppress,
Yeah.
all of these abilities and gifts that we have. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So does anybody come to you for advice that, that want to maybe step into their gifts, like the same path as you have done? Like, have you
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
wake
Do you
up
know
and
what?
you're like, oh,
I
yeah,
get
you must
more of
have.
that Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So how do you help them? What do they ask you and how do you help them?
well, often it's people saying, oh, I
Mm.
think I've been seeing spirits. I think it's always I think. It's like, yeah, yeah, you have. Or, often it's also more they're tapping into their psychic abilities. They're like, oh, well, I dreamt this and then it happened. I was thinking this and
Mm.
then it happened. Or I keep having visions about this and I'm worried it might happen, and I don't know what to do with that information. And so, those people often come to me in readings or healings, and then they'll say, I've come because I don't know what to do. Or lots of
Okay.
people reach out to me personally as well and say, I've heard a bit about your story. This is similar to what I'm feeling.
Mm.
Like, could you work with one basis? I'm getting more of that now, which
That's beautiful.
yeah. And so,
Yeah.
I sort of am doing that on, I suppose, an ad hoc basis at the moment, but I would
Maybe you
love,
should have a little psychic school. That would be quite cool.
well, that is literally what,
Spirit
I
school.
would love that to be.
Mm.
I have started a Patreon to just sort of start bringing some of, I
Amazing. Yeah.
suppose, the more like groundwork
Yeah,
together so
that's
that people
great.
have a bit of a understanding, some just of the foundational stuff at the moment. How to look after your energy,
Yeah,
grounding and
excellent.
protecting. What are the clairs? What are psychic
Yeah,
abilities?
yeah,
I think some of this stuff that at the beginning of your journey is really confusing and
yeah.
overwhelming.
Very overwhelming. Yeah. And I think with
So
the films as well, that you start doing a Ouija board, you're going to see this horrible demonic thing. Yeah, you shouldn't muck about with some things, but
yeah,
it's
but
very rare. Yeah.
I always like say, I wouldn't muck about with, an engine of a car. I'm not a mechanic, so
No,
it's like the same
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, and it's
But
also good people and bad people in the world. You can walk around Asda and you don't know if there's like a murderer in there or somebody who really horrible or hit their wife or
exactly,
you don't know.
yeah,
And we're around
yeah,
it all the time, but we're
it's
not
so
terrified
true.
of going to Asda.
I mean, yeah, that's so
I'm probably more scared of that than I am actually working
well,
with.
yeah, I was about to say that. I'm probably more scared of going to Asda than doing a Ouija board. But
Yeah,
but yeah, so yeah, I've started this Patreon in order to sort of support those who are really at the beginning and a bit
yeah,
overwhelmed or confused, but
yeah,
also curious, like there's like this little pool. Maybe they just want to dip their toe in. And I really see that growing. And, eventually I'll share more detailed information about,
yeah. I think it's
more
great.
some of the like more deep,
Yeah,
mystical, dark stuff as well, because
yeah.
everyone is fascinated with that
Yeah, they
too.
are. They are.
Um,
And what I think is lovely there, you might be able to build like a community as well. They're like-minded people, so they can actually
Absolutely.
make friends and not feel so
Yeah.
weird. Yeah,
Yeah. And that was
that's really lovely.
a lot of the idea of it came out of, yeah, feeling a bit, isolated sometimes when
Yeah.
you're on this journey, despite having support of people, my family and friends and my husband, you
Mm,
know, sometimes finding like-minded people
yeah.
it's just like, oh, it's so refreshing.
Mhm.
Last year, I went to Hogwarts, the
Yeah, you
Arthur
went to the
Conan
psychic
College
school, which is
psychic
incredible. I
school,
was like, oh my God.
and yeah, that was an experience. But just to spend a whole very intense week with people that totally got it,
Yeah.
totally got it. No conversation was too weird to have.
Yeah.
Was just like oh, just the
Being at
relief.
home. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Peaceful.
the morning that my taxi came to get me to take me back to the train station, I was crying because I was like, I just don't want to go home. And my Uber kept cancelling, and I was like, it's the sign, I meant to stay.
Yeah, live there or
Obviously,
become a teacher. You
yeah,
never know.
yeah. It
Be a
turned up
teacher.
eventually, and I had to come home. But yeah, it was just like I think yeah. So that finding like-minded people,
Yeah. And that's part of the
become
work that you did in yourself to actually, develop
yeah,
your skills and your gifts to see, what you can do.
yeah,
That was
and
really good. And again, huge confidence. You
yeah.
probably would never have done that 6, 7 years ago, you
Oh
know?
no, I would have like just
Yeah.
laughed at the idea.
Yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, it was a huge experience in so many ways, meeting some amazing people who, I made friends with an 80-year-old lady who'd been a medium for most of her life, and she had like just the best stories. And, you know, but then equally, we had such a lovely friendship at the end of the week. She was like, I've
Um,
learned so much from you too, and
yeah.
it,
Yeah. That's lovely. I love
yeah,
that.
just like some
Yeah.
really special people. It really did actually help my confidence so much. It was more of I think I was thinking I was going to learn all this technical stuff about how to do a really good reading, how to get a spirit in, keep a link, all of this jargon that you hear all the time. And I was like, yeah, and I'll come out and I'll just be like, I can do a reading. And then when I got there, I was like, this is not what I'm here for. It's
I
actually just to
confirm you're
completely,
doing it all right.
yeah, completely know that I am good. I am good at this, and
Yeah.
that there are people here with tons more experience, but no one is better at it than
No.
anyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's
And that
different.
everyone has such a different way of
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do
Yeah.
you sense spirit?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
It changes all the time.
Yeah.
You know, just when I think
It
I've got
will
it,
carry on changing.
yeah, it then like, oh, we're doing it like this now.
Mm.
So yeah, for me, it is often, I get a knowing, and I see in my mind's eye. There have been a rare occasion that I have physically seen things too, but that's quite rare.
Yeah. That might develop a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my audio is definitely coming in. Again, I've had some quite strange
Yeah.
experiences where I'm like, there's definitely someone talking to me in the house, or out, you know. But yeah, I would say it's very visual. It's almost like they do speak to me, but it comes in through my mind. And I suppose, yeah, a sense of knowing as well. So, but yeah, but it does change. As I say, some days I won't see anything, but I'll just be like, I know they're here and I know I've got all this information. Or sometimes I could be sat, in my house. I'm like, oh, my great granddad's just walked in,
Yeah.
and he's just casually walking
Yeah.
in
You
the
can
house.
never be lonely.
Like, yeah, well, yeah, like he's literally just popped in and sat on the sofa next to
Yeah.
me, and then the
Yeah.
next time I see him, it might not be like that. So
Yeah. Do you wander around the house as well sometimes? I sometimes speak out loud. So if a spirit's
yeah,
I go, okay, okay, I'll switch the light off. I'll make myself this or do that, or I'll cook in this way, and I go, okay, okay. And then my husband would be like, who are you talking to? Or are you talking to
yeah,
me? I'm like, no, 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 no. It's fine. Because you forget.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you have this conversation, you're in this little world, you're like, oh, and you just say it out loud. Do you do that?
yes, I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like sometimes we might be downstairs and there'll be like some strange noises coming from upstairs in our house. And my husband will look at me and be like, have you been talking to dead people again today? Are they still here? And I'll be like, oh yeah, it's just so and so. Yeah.
Oh,
And they'll go eventually, so it's become
yeah.
quite just relaxed in that sense. But
That's
yeah.
really good. Really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, I have had I suppose the strangest scenario I've had, which
Yeah,
is
I was going to
probably,
ask you.
yeah,
Yeah.
which has been developing more recently, is actually where spirit has spoken through me, which has actually only been happening
Amazing.
in the last couple of
Well,
months.
like trance mediumship?
Well, yeah, but when I don't really feel like I'm in a trance state,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
I know, which
People
I
be
was,
taking over your voice box?
yeah. So, but very, very shortly, like a word or a couple of, a sentence, and then I'm back. It actually first happened on an online reading with
I'd
a
love you to
lady,
develop that.
and um,
Mm.
and I just suddenly started saying things, and I was like, "That is not my voice. What's going on?" And I couldn't even. It didn't feel like my mouth was
Yeah.
moving. And she literally went white on the screen. And she
Yeah.
was like, how did you know all of that? Because what had come out of my mouth,
Yeah, you would have known. Yeah.
would
It would
only
have
have that
been your
person
spirit. Yeah.
known. And I kind of just had to,
Yeah, take a
well,
moment.
I was just a bit like, I need to just carry on like that's completely okay. And I was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, oh, that was your grandma coming through me, blah, blah, blah. Now,
Wow.
so, and then when I got off the call, I was like, what? That's never happened before.
Yeah. This
And
is
it has happened a few times, yeah. But so yeah, trance is something that I'm really
yeah.
intrigued by
Yeah.
now.
Years ago,
Um,
my dad took me to watch a trance mediumship by somebody who's very famous. I can't remember her name, but she was from Europe. And I walked into this room and she was sat in this cardboard box. There's like this huge
yeah,
cardboard box around her, and all the lights went off, and she had like a support person. And I think the
yeah,
support person was making sure that she would come back and be like, it's okay. So, and then she was just like meditating, and there's like a red light like coming up on
yeah,
her. But when you're staring at someone like that, she literally, I mean, she must have been, I'd say, in her mid 40s, a normal woman. Okay, just normal, like nothing
yeah,
unusual. But she turned into a little girl and had pigtails. She turned into an old lady, and you can see all these
yeah.
different like beings and beings, but also spirits coming in and changing her. There was
Oh,
also a dog that walked past. It's like insane.
it's
I
in,
absolutely loved
yeah,
it.
I've been
Yeah,
to watch it twice myself,
yeah,
yeah. And yeah, and just the transformation.
yeah.
Again, like she had three people supporting her, and I was
Yeah,
like,
you need to find your support person.
I know, but this is like, I remember someone saying to me, "Oh, like, how do you feel about trance mediumship?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not sure about that." And now I'm like, well, it's kind of happening without me even tapping
Yeah, so it
in.
means he might be your next step.
Yeah, so who knows? What's to say? But I
That's a
think
whole nother conversation. I'm not.
yeah, but I think the biggest thing I've learned is that
Yeah,
to not get like hung up on it because it does change,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that's it. I was probably again at the beginning, I was like, oh, it needs to be like this way. These are my abilities and I need to work with those. And now I'm like, nah, you just need to relax and just
yeah.
trust
Play,
that,
be, yeah. See what you can
trust,
do.
trust that it happens
Yeah,
as it happens in the way it's meant to. And yeah, I think that really then allows you to relax more into it. And
yeah.
then,
You're a
you know,
great example of that. It's really good how you're like, I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to see. I'm just going to. Oh, I like
yeah. And yeah,
it.
and I
you
get sometimes that's nuts, but I think, for me, I know that I have worked really hard to be very integral about protecting myself, and I think that's really important. Like you said earlier, we don't
You're grounded.
necessarily
Mm,
know that there's always going to be good stuff. And I
right.
think, of course that brings fear with that, but I think if you're really aware of your own energy, you're making sure you're
Yeah,
clear and grounded and protected, and you're working, with the right intention,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. And
it,
there is, I've had quite a few pretty horrendous situations, but some of it has been because I used to do like a ghost busting thing where I take people out, a bit like, remember Almost Haunted or something like that with Derek Decorah. Can you remember that?
yes, I
Right.
went to see him a few times.
Right. So I used that when it was really popular. I used to like take, I don't know, like 20 women off into the woods at midnight. And then I was with another witch that I knew and a couple other people who would do mediumship. And we literally used to call out spirits. And I'd ask them, hit me, let me know you're there, pull my hair, all this stuff. So
And
we
did they react?
yeah. So I had to, but that's my fault, because I'm calling that out to be able to capture
Yeah,
them on camera, and it was
yeah,
quite a buzz to capture them on camera. And we were going to some pretty, haunted places to get that. And as long as I was protected and I could clear it to move, to go home, then it's fine.
yeah,
Then I've also had quite a lot of, full on experiences which I haven't shared on social media. I might do over the time, but it probably would scare people. So I'm like, I'll keep that to myself. But but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
nothing you can't move on from. It's not
No,
like it's not in the movies where suddenly your bed's gonna be shaking, you're gonna turn green, and you're gonna do projectile vomit. I haven't got to that stage.
no, and hopefully not.
Yeah,
But no, I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure I haven't had anything like too dark. But yeah, there have been some things that have happened to me.
yeah.
I'm actually really lucky. I've got like she's a retired medium, but she still works as an energy healer who lives nearby, and
That's good.
she's sort of been a really supportive person for me. And I see her regularly to make sure my energy's all
Yeah,
good. But I'll turn up at her house and she'll be like, "Oh, what have you been messing around with?" And I'll be like, "Oh, I thought I'd got rid of it." It's just like so casual. And I'm
yeah,
so lucky that I found her. It's no
yeah,
coincidence that I did.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
You
but
need
she
someone
then,
like that. If you're doing it, as much as you are, you do need some
yeah, she's
support.
been like a real, like, yeah, support in that sense and helped me, figure out things if I was like, oh, I thought I had done the right thing to release that energy, but I probably hadn't done it quite enough or hadn't sat with the
Yeah,
intention. So it's all
yeah.
a learning curve,
I
but
think it's with practice, that's all.
exactly that's it. And so yeah, so nothing, too wild. But yeah, I've had a few, where I know it's like not unpleasant energy to be dealing with. Which funny enough often comes attached with other people when they come for.
Yes, and you can't help it because they're already
Yeah, they come
there.
for a healing and they
Yeah,
might be like, well, I don't feel great. And it's like, well, yeah, because
yeah.
there's something with you that shouldn't be.
I also have a tip for you, okay? I don't
Mm.
know if people on this will be interested in this or not, but you go somewhere, so I'm going in a building or on the land, and you suddenly feel, oh, I feel not right, being a bit sick, feeling pressure on my head,
Mm.
feeling, not my energy. Get your phone out and put it on to, I think, a flash and video. Okay, so you'll start seeing
Mm.
orbs. If you see red, then go. That's my advice.
Mm. So I do the camera thing, which actually you told me about
Yeah.
years ago.
If you
And
see a red orb,
oh, okay,
don't go
that's a
any
good shout.
further.
Thank you. Yeah.
If you go to someone's house and you get to the threshold, I always ask myself, it's like a vampire, but I always say, am I welcome? Not
Mm.
to the person who's let me in, into the
Just
actual
to
house
to
spirit.
the
Yeah.
actual bit.
Am I
Yeah.
welcome to step forward, especially if it's an old house or a modern estate is built on something old? I will check
Yeah.
in with my energy. If I feel no, then I won't cross.
Yeah. I think that's it. It's like learning all of these
Yeah.
feelings as well, because yeah, I've become a bit like, who knew that actually buildings and spaces can hold all this energy, this residual energy, or there can still be obviously lingering spirit energy,
Yeah.
and that can have quite a
Cause a lot of
effect.
problems. I've
Yeah.
had a happy couple move into a house and then they just start rowing constantly and they're absolutely fine before they're in the house. I've had a woman who could never keep a partner and every partner she had started hitting her about and was abusive and horrible. But there was a
Oh, yeah.
spirit in the house that was trapped.
Yeah.
He didn't know they were dead and he didn't want anybody to be happy and love. And it was quite horrendous.
Mm.
There's a lot of stuff in
Oh, yeah.
buildings that can
And
affect
I think
us.
I think I get probably and similar maybe where
Yeah,
you are, because there's a lot
yeah.
of old buildings in Brighton on
Oh,
the
yeah,
coast.
yeah, yeah.
It's kind of
Loads.
like, yeah, there's just
Yeah,
so much,
yeah,
it's almost impossible not to feel things
yeah. Yeah,
sometimes.
it is.
Like sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the house today because I haven't got the energy to deal with all the
I
things
live next
out
door to a
there.
graveyard and I've got a chapel
Well,
of
I know, which is
fine.
actually,
Yeah,
I would
mine's
love
very
that.
busy.
Yeah, I have joked. Well, I joked. It's not a joke really, but I've always said to my husband, like, if ever a house or a
Best
graveyard popped up,
neighbours. Best neighbours.
yeah, nice and peaceful.
Nice and peaceful. I chat to them occasionally. The chapel
Yeah,
probably
they
not
keep
so.
themselves to themselves
Yeah,
most of the time.
it's
Yeah.
the time. Right, so as we end this, can you give some wisdom for somebody that probably is inspired about your gifts? Okay, that they've got these gifts that they've really wanted to maybe tap into, but their witch wound is really holding them back. What
Yeah.
advice?
I I think Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? To like,
For
you
the
know,
first step.
the first step I would say, going back to what I was saying earlier, is if it feels way too much,
Mm.
just to first lean into being intuitive. And, because our intuition is actually,
Yeah.
our spirit and soul, and will connect you to all of these beautiful abilities and gifts. But if you can just start to connect with your intuition, and I mean by actually hearing it first,
Yeah.
because I think so many people don't even hear it.
No. The way you
Um,
get like a funny feeling in the tummy, that's what I get. I'm like, well, what was I meant to feel in my tummy? I'm like, it's like a knowing, and you feel
yeah,
it within you,
yeah.
not just your tummy.
And I think lots of people
Yeah.
just dismiss that because,
Mm.
we're not trained to believe that that's possible. And often it's an indication, isn't it, that something's
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
something's going to happen. And
Yeah.
actually,
We'll get a hell yes or a hell no.
yeah,
If we can
that's
just
it.
work that out, that would help.
Exactly. And I think that to
Yeah.
me it's such a gentle way to lean in because then you start to, when you realize that, oh, when I listen to my intuition,
Mm.
oh, it was right about this, that helps build your confidence.
Yeah.
And eventually, when your confidence builds, you start to act on your intuition. And I think that's when you start to really step into your power. For me, that was like when I acted on my intuition, it set me on the path to being a witch. And, for someone else, that might be, oh, they act on it and they change job or, they
Yeah. Find the right
travel,
partner
it,
or yeah.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
I think this lovely instinctive
Mm.
guidance system that we have within us is so part of that energy. Lots of people will describe it as being linked to the universal source, or, it is part of your inner soul or spirit. So I
Yeah.
think to me, it's a really lovely way of leaning in, and starting from there. I
Mm.
think the other thing I would just say is this kind of desperation to know it all straight away
Yeah.
and be really good at it like that
Yeah.
overnight. And I think again,
Takes
you can get
time.
confident and then suddenly you're like,
Yeah.
oh, but I want it to happen all now. And I have learned that, again, being a very impatient Aries,
Yeah.
that it just doesn't work like that either. I think we live in a world as well where everything is instant,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you
A part of
suddenly,
the beauty is that journey of learning and
yeah, it
practicing and
is. Yeah,
developing and gaining this wisdom. It's fun.
it is. And I think now, again, I've really leaned into that, and enjoying it at each step. It's so beautiful. And, like you said earlier, when I'm excited to get into my crone era, because I know things will be
Yeah. Amazing.
even more amazing. I was thinking, oh, if I'm still here when I'm 80, think of what I'll be doing then,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that to me now actually makes me really excited about what's to come whilst enjoying what I'm doing now, and it's just, yeah, just this huge acceptance that you have to trust and surrender that you're exactly where you're meant to be in that moment. And yeah, that takes time. It's going back to that
Yeah.
unlearning,
Yeah.
re-remembering,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
part of it. So
It's
yeah.
part of it. That's
So yeah,
beautiful. Beautiful wisdom.
thanks.
No, but thank you for coming on and sharing your journey. And it's
Oh
been
no,
lots of
thank you. I
lots.
probably could have spoken for another five
I know
hours.
me too. Thank you.